offered us this space tonight, and of course, I'm so grateful to the judges who are able to be here tonight and all of you. It's a really unique opportunity to have them here listening to us and have us be able to hear from them as well. I want to give a shout out to our 5th Precinct Inspector, Katie Blackwell is here. Thank you for being here. Very Lenny Palmisano is planning to be here, but I don't see her yet. Oh, there she is. Hi. And we have Scott Graham here, who's a candidate in Ward 7 for State Council. And we also have Commissioner Alexander, who will be saying a couple words in just a moment. I just wanted to lay the ground rules for tonight, and I didn't believe that cameras were allowed, so I'm assuming that has been worked out now. But anyway, the judges are not allowed to comment on current cases and really probably any cases that they've been a part of. So that's kind of one of the main rules. And obviously, there's a lot of people who have a lot of passions, and we just want to make sure people are being respectful, that we all came here, as well as the judges, to listen and be able to have this time together. So just want to make sure that we are doing that. Again, I'm Julie Wicklund. I was the victim of a crime in 2021. It kind of sparked me on a journey to understand a lot more about our criminal justice system. And it's been an eye-opening experience to help me understand where the gaps are, and wanted to make me hold our elected officials accountable to do their jobs and really understand what their jobs are, right? Is what you have to do first. So I think that's why this is a really special opportunity to have these folks here. And so without further ado, I'll have Commissioner Alexander introduce himself and say a few remarks on the juvenile crime initiatives that we have going on right now.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having the opportunity to be here with you. Thank you, judges, for being here tonight. Let's go to a round of applause. Just a couple of things real quick in terms of the number of initiatives that are currently going on within the city. They are numerous. But let me say this about public safety in general. In almost a year I've been here, which will be a couple of weeks, one thing that has been clearly important to us is that we begin to think about public safety in a very comprehensive type of way. Not just in terms of arresting people, but also in terms of how do we get people to make contact with people, engage with people before they ever get themselves into these types of situations, which increase and create, I should say, the type of incarceration rates that we still see across this country. One of the most important things we've come to understand, and I certainly have over the years, is that trying to get the assets and resources that are so important today for folks, whether they're struggling with health, homelessness, alcohol addiction, lack of social services support, whatever the case we have to be. We're beginning to think about how do we provide those types of interventions that are going to be so important in the future that keep many people out of our judicial circuit, period. Because we're trying to fix a problem, we need to fix a problem before it becomes a problem. So we start thinking about comprehensive plans around public safety today. It's more than just police, but it really does include all of those other important public safety elements that are so essential to people everyday lives. Imagine what it would be like if you're out there on the street. I argue with many of us, we know people and are acquainted with people who are struggling, maybe struggling with a mental health issue. Maybe police come to their house 2, 3, 4 times a week or a day in some cases, but they're not getting the real support that they need. And we got to have resources in place, and we do have resources in place through our behavioral crisis response teams that are able to respond to those communities, respond to those homes, and get people the needed help that they need. even when it comes to homelessness in this community. How can we better able to provide the resources that are needed to help people get on their feet, to help people to get reconnected with family, with friends, to find and give them the types of support they need in order to live the type of life they want to live, that they feel is best for them. Not what we think, but what they think is best for them. But we all have these social responsibilities throughout this community and communities across this country. So when I talk about public safety today, it's just not about police, but it really is about providing that comprehensive approach to policing that help people to help themselves, give them the resources, support that they need so that they can live a meaningful life. And I think that's what we all want. I want to applaud our judges that are here tonight who took time out to come out and hear your questions and to talk about their position and the challenges oftentimes that are associated with the work that they do. And I've had an opportunity to talk to a couple of judges since I've been here in this community and had great conversation as to how we can work better together. But the whole key here is truly around prevention, getting people to a place where they have the resources that they need to better help them, support them, treat them, whatever the case may have to be. Because it's not always about just locking people up. This is also about giving people the help that they need. And a lot of the calls for service that we go to every day in this city are people who are struggling with real social service needs, not just police-related needs. We can intervene, provide the help, support that they need. It creates a better community and environment for all of us. So thank you for having the opportunity to stop by and have this conversation with you all tonight. And just know we're here. The Office of Community Safety is here in the city. And I'm going to do everything that I can to make sure that we all have a safe and wholesome community. This is a wonderful city. I said that a year ago when I came here. Wonderful city, beautiful city, and we're well on our way to doing things very much differently than what we have in the past. So thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Alexander. And my background is in public health. I'm an epidemiologist, and I, of course, am all about prevention and, look to it through that lens as well. And so I am eager to hear more about some of the initiatives that we can do better at by utilizing our public health resources and lenses for that prevention work. But the other side that Commissioner Alexander was a part of is Operation Endeavor that did come into our city, an initiative that helped bring down violent crime rates. So we have seen a drop in carjacking. We have seen a drop in some other violent crimes, homicides. But here in the 5th Precinct and around Minneapolis, we have seen an increase in motor vehicle thefts that is off the charts like nothing ever seen before. We also have an increase here in the 5th Precinct of domestic aggravated assault, of property damage, of assault, and of stolen property is up, and weapons violations. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about, that's the reality of what is going on in our community right now. We're going to start out by having Chief Judge Barnett say a few remarks, and then we're going to have each judge have an opportunity to introduce themselves, and if they're able to, when they do their introduction, say what they feel like are some of their frustrations and/or disconnects they see in the system, or things that they'd like to see different, things that maybe impede them from feeling like they are able to do the job that they can, or maybe something that you're really happy about or really proud about that you're seeing that is a new initiative that people should know about. So I think it helps for us to know that you're real people and have frustrations just like we do, and sometimes you're limited by what you can do and by the resources available to you as well. So thank you.
Well, good evening, and thanks for having us. Thank you, Thank you, Dr. Alexander, as well for that update. I am Todd Barnett. I'm the Chief Judge here in Hennepin County. And I just want to say thanks for inviting us here today. We've done a couple of these listening sessions, and Julie was reminding me that she was at the Patrick Henry one that we did a couple of months ago, which kind of sparked this one. This is different. The reason why this one's different is because we're specifically here to listen to you about juvenile crime. And so this is one event that we haven't done like this, and we're interested in hearing and learning from you. That's what we're here for. And like Ms. Wicklund said, we can't talk about specific cases, but we are here to listen to any concerns that you have related to juvenile crime. Like I said, I'm the chief judge. All of the judges that you see here, except for me, work in juvenile court. So when you see me nod my head or not answer a question, because they actually know what they're talking about, and so they have that experience. Just to give you a little bit of background, I'm a former public defender for about 14, 15 years, and then county attorney, and then in 2006, so 17 years ago, I was appointed to the bench and have been the chief for the last 3 years. So that's some background. None of these judges have frustrations about how the court is running. No frustrations about it. But no, they'll tell you a little bit about themselves and about the limitations that we have. So just again, thank you for having us. We're here to listen. We're here to learn. And so I don't know how you want the judges just to go down the line.
Good evening, everyone. Again, Ms. Wicklund, thank you so much for organizing this listening session. My name is Mark Appelhoff. I've been a judge for about 7 years. Of those 7 years, 4 of them I've been in juvenile court. Before I was a judge, became a judge, appointed to be a judge, I spent much of my career working in the Civil Rights Division in the U.S. Department of Justice as a federal prosecutor, so about 20 years. So I'm about 100 years old. So I spent much of my career there. I prosecuted human trafficking cases, hate crimes, and police misconduct cases all over the country. So that's where I spent the bulk of my career before being appointed to the bench. I also spent about 3 years teaching law school at the University of Minnesota. So that's my background. It's great to be here. It's great to see such a wonderful turnout. It's terrific. I look forward certainly to hearing from all of you here this evening.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Angela Wilms, and I'm a juvenile court judge. I've been a judge for about 4 years. I've spent the majority of my career prior to that working on juvenile-related issues, so working in juvenile court and juvenile justice issues. So juvenile court is near and dear to my heart. Juvenile justice is near and dear to my heart, and I participated in many reforms that seek to get at some of the concerns that I think we'll talk about here tonight. Some of the things that I would like our system to be able to do well, I think really goes to the mandate of juvenile court, which is rehabilitation, working with young people to change their circumstances, to improve what they're doing with their lives and what they see for their futures so that they can be contributing members of society, and to make sure that some of the things that we see in juvenile justice doesn't reoccur when those young people become adults. And so I see our role as supporting young people in the community and making sure that if they do make a choice that results in a crime, that we work with them to make better choices in the future by supporting them through community resources and help.
Good evening, I'm Todd Feldman. Prior to becoming a judge, I was a Hennepin County prosecutor for 27 years. Of 24 of those years, I worked in the Child Protection Division, working with families that were in trouble and had their children removed or in the process of having their children removed, and I did a couple years of adult prosecution also. I've been on the bench about 4 years, the same amount of time as Angela, and the last 2 years have been down in juvenile court. And it's obviously a place where I practiced for over 24 years, so it's near and dear to my Along with Angela, I think, and how Commissioner Alexander explained, it's strengthening families, strengthening the supports in the community is best, because by the time the kids get to juvenile court, a crime has already been committed, so we as a society have already failed. And that means that there's a victim and a young adult or a young youth that has committed a crime that needs some rehabilitation, or the community needs protection. So if we can prevent that, that's going to be the best way for all of us.
Hi there. I'm Janice Redding. I'm a judge in juvenile court. I've been a judge for 17 years, 1 minute longer than Judge Barnett. So I have seniority over Judge Barnett. I have to make that clear. My background is largely civil and family. I worked at a private practice firm, and then I was a child support magistrate and a family court referee before I became a judge. I've only been in juvenile court 3 years, and that's my first stint in juvenile court. I largely did adult, felony, criminal, and family court before that. I think you would not be surprised that a lot of the frustrations we have are the frustrations you have. But I am proud that we work really hard as a system to address those. We have good partners that we work with, the counties, the prosecutors, the defenders, and we work really hard on different initiatives to address the things that are happening in our community. I would say, I think I probably speak for all of us, that one of the frustrations we have is the lack of treatment opportunities for a lot of the youth. A lot of our treatment facilities have, for various reasons, many reasons, not any one reason, gone away over the last few years, so that is something that we are working with the county and other folks on having more treatment opportunities to send our youth to.
Good evening. My name is Tanya Bransford, and I'm a judge also in Hennepin County District Court. I'm currently assigned in the juvenile court area, where I've been for about 4 years now. There's 63 of us judges in Hennepin County, and so we rotate, and so we really choose to be in juvenile court because, and one of the reasons I can speak for myself, because it's really an opportunity to make a change in a young person's life or in a family's life, because we also address issues of child protection, so that the family can be made whole, so that the young person can be rehabilitated or can change and not continue down that path. So I have been a judge. I'm the most senior judge here. Okay, maybe the oldest up here too. Okay, but because I've been a judge here in Hennepin County for 29 years, and prior to that, I did work in the juvenile court as a referee. Before that, I was a workers' compensation judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings, and I started out my career at a small law firm where we did a variety of things, different areas of the law. My friend and colleague here, Judge Redding, kind of stole my thunder, but as she said, one of the concerns that we have, I think it's a societal issue, especially since the pandemic. There is a strong need or there's an increased need, it appears, for people, young people and adults, to get mental health services, to get substance abuse services. And as judges, we're limited. I can order it all I want. So I can order people to go to therapy, and then they come back and they say, well, I tried, but I had to wait for 3 months before I could get an appointment. Or I went to the appointment, but the provider quit, or whatever kind of things. So that's one of the issues. And then the other thing that I just have to point out is that we make a big effort to try to keep and rehabilitate young people within the community because we think that's most successful. And during my career, I have seen and in fact led efforts so that we're no longer locking young people up for things like truancy, skipping school, or theft, or not because they missed court because they never received the notice in the first place. There was a variety of reasons, and at the time our juvenile detention center was overflowing at some times. But now, There are some occasions where young people have to be placed outside of the home, either because there's no home that they have, or because they're either being victimized or potentially victimizing someone in the home. And we just have a real shortage of treatment programs to send young people to. The closing of the county home school, Totem Town is closed, Woodland Hills, a variety of other programs have closed so that they're limited, and young people wait for a long time to get into the treatment that they need. That's a frustration that I think I have and that we probably all share. The only other thing I wanted to share personally is that I've also been a victim of auto theft because my son had my old Kia and he didn't have so of course they stole it, but that was in San Francisco. So I wanted to share that I understand dealing with that.
Thank you all. I think that Judge Heckelhoff is going to give us a quick update on some of the changes that have been made because of the increase in juvenile crime that they've seen.
Yes, and in fact, it's largely due to the listening sessions that Judge Barnett mentioned. We've had 2 prior listening sessions. This is our 3rd in about 3 months, and they are quite instructive. And we look forward to the listening sessions we've had with community members because they brought forth not only the concerns but their ideas about how we can improve the juvenile justice system as well as the criminal justice system. And I just want to highlight 4 initiatives that we have just recently implemented in juvenile court that I think will address, or at least address some of the concerns that you have regarding auto thefts and other issues in your community. The issues of juveniles, we have to understand both public safety, but also intervening quickly. For those of you who have teenagers or once were a teenager, obviously getting their attention quickly and keeping their attention is critically important. So a lot of the initiatives we have now implemented in juvenile court try to address both of those things in a global way to address both public safety and intervening early. And let me be specific about what we have implemented in juvenile court. With any case, any youth, young person who's charged with an offense of fleeing a police officer in a motor vehicle, and I know many of you have seen in the media and elsewhere the cases of fleeing a police officer in a motor vehicle. In those cases, the youth will be detained mandatorily and will have to appear before a judge within 36 hours. That is a new initiative that we've implemented and is currently in effect. We also now have an auto theft expedited processing process. Any youth who is charged, any young person who is charged with an auto theft must get a court date within 3 days before a judge, and that will help expedite that case and move that case through the system more quickly. A third initiative we've implemented in collaboration with our partners in probation is a pretrial services program. What the pretrial services program does is it provides services to the youth, provides supervision of the youth when the youth is charged with an offense, and again intervenes earlier in that young person's life, helps the family as well in a holistic way to address what the needs are potentially of the family or the youth. So the new pretrial services program, which has been in effect for about a month and a half, has shown great success in addressing the needs of the youth as well as the family. And the 4th initiative that has been in place for a couple of months now is with regard to any carjacking cases in which a young person is charged. Those cases are specifically assigned, we call it blocked, to a judge. And that's important for this reason. That means a single judge will oversee that case to learn more about the needs of that particular youth, understand more clearly what the case is about, and be able to address and intervene earlier with that young person on an individual basis. It's not a case that's going to be put on a large calendar. It's going to be assigned to a single judge so that judge can address that particular case and the needs of that particular youth. So those are just 4 examples of programs that we have implemented, both based on what community members have shared with us through the listening sessions, the collaboration with the county attorney's office, with probation, with the behavioral mental health system that is in place in Hennepin County. And together we've come up with these changes and they are now in place. We've implemented them and they are active, and this is how we're handling these types of cases. And I wanted to share that with all of you.
That's great. Thanks so much, Judge Kappelhoff. I think now we will move into some of our speakers, and the first one up, we have Mark. If you want to hold it yourself, or if you want to. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Thank you for being here to listen to us today. My name is Mark Ferrer. I've lived in southwest Minneapolis for 20 years with my family. I'm joined by my friend and neighbor, Bryce Johnson, who helped me prepare the statement. My wife, Anita Suker, couldn't be here. She's out of town. So I want to talk about my family being a victim and witnesses of violent juvenile crime in the recent past. And this is about, these involve guns and semi-automatic weapons. So this is at a much higher level than a carjacking. On Saturday, April 29th, 2023, about 10 a.m., my son Stephen and his friend, both 13 years old, were walking home from Starbucks to our neighborhood in Tangletown, and they were at Prospect Avenue. And a group of teenagers pulled over in a stolen car, and they pointed a gun at them, and several of them had screwdrivers, and they demanded that my son and his friend unlock their cell phones and turn them over. My son and his friend complied, and they came directly home. They were obviously extremely traumatized. So we immediately called 911, and an officer came immediately, and he was extremely helpful and made us feel a lot better. Filed a report, of course. So we appreciated that response. We found out later that day that this group of teenagers went on to commit several more very similar crimes over the next several hours that day. So they were going around the city for several hours doing this to other people. Again, guns and screwdrivers. The second one, on the early evening of Thursday, May 25th, my family was having dinner, and we heard gunshots coming from the end of our street, which is Bush Terrace. And down at Bush Terrace in Pleasant is Washburn High School. So we came out wondering what was going on. I didn't know if there were fireworks or whatnot, but they were shooting off a gun, and they were running up our street, and my wife got photos and videos for evidence. Turns out that one of these kids was carrying a handgun with an attachment, which was like a Glock attachment, so he could shoot multiple rounds more efficiently. They ran through our street, and they were hiding in the yards of our neighbors. The police response was incredible. It was robust, and they even made an arrest within a few minutes. My wife was working with Chief O'Hara, showing him the evidence and helping him find the people. So this obviously was incredibly traumatizing, especially with what had happened to our son Stefan, and he was at home at this time during the second incident. So we later found out that these were gang members who had invaded Washburn High School to do some, really violent things to a celebration that was going on there. So Washburn High School, I think, we raised 3 kids. 2 of our oldest, our daughters, went to Washburn High School, and we just think it's really ineffective in terms of not having metal detectors, not having proper security. So we've since, I'll wrap up now, we've since had meetings in our backyard, and we've gone to community meetings to discuss these issues. So we've worked with Inspector Blackwell, Emily Kosky, Julie Wicklund, and many others with this. So we're told that there's some solutions like surveillance cameras that would feed into the MPD, but that we'd have to pay for those out of our pocket, and they're $7,000 each. So we're just really, really frustrated and discouraged. We're told there's no point in moving because violent crime is everywhere. But the national statistics show that the violent crime in Minneapolis is in the top 20 cities in the United States. So this is just really discouraging. And so we have a lot of questions and concerns. And thank you for listening to me today.
Thanks, Mark. I didn't know if any of the judges wanted to say any comments following Mark's. Or let's just call it the next. Go ahead.
imagine that in the community, the things that we've seen, we see a lot of what you talk about in juvenile court. I just would like you to know that the decision of how we respond to crimes like that takes into account the effect on the community and the impact on the community. And it's one of the things that we take very seriously when we make our decisions. It's important for us to know the information that you shared so that we can take that with us when we're considering offenses like that in the future. And I just appreciate your statement. Thank you.
I would just add that we really share your concern about the proliferation of firearms, particularly among youth and youth impulsiveness. Those two things don't go together very well. And we take it very seriously, and we talk about it a lot amongst ourselves and talk about strategies to combat that.
Make one comment. Again, thank you, Mark, for sharing your comments on this. While I'm on Judge Redding, the number of guns we've seen, as I mentioned, my prior background as a federal prosecutor, so I know about guns and those sorts of things. But the size of the guns and the description you gave is not uncommon to what we see in court on a regular basis. The lethality and the size of the magazines that we're seeing in the weapons that young people are being charged with is highly concerning, to say the least. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much, Mark. The next speaker we have is Ann Singer. And then Jan will be over here helping with time, but
Sorry to be efficient. I'm used to telling this story, unfortunately. I see some familiar faces that were involved with my case. I was a victim of a violent crime in December of 2021. Two young men with an AR-15 and entered my home. I'll be a good point. Threatened to kill me from my car and valuables. I was assaulted in this process, and it's been life-changing, as you can imagine. I did follow through with hearings with one of the judges that's literally seated here in front of me, and there was someone arrested, obviously. And I think the most disconcerting thing was that this person had a lengthy juvenile record. It led to assaults, theft, gun possession. He held his pregnant sister at gunpoint and tried to kill her. That person was involved in what happened to me. And actually, we found out later that it happened. He was involved with Julie's crime as well. I think the thing that people forget is that in our earnest pursuit of getting ahead of the problem and dealing with the kids, is that the victims get left behind. I was very fortunate to have a wonderful victims advocate throughout the legal process. She informed me, she was empathetic, she was kind, but she also had her hands full. There were a lot of people she was dealing with. And I'm still dealing with the fallout. I hoped I could get through this statement with a little more composure, but the fact of the matter is this thing turned my life upside down. I had a position with the company for almost 18 years and I couldn't return to work. I see doctors. I had 2 prescriptions prior to this home invasion. I have 6 now. And every day I have to work on PTSD and trauma. And I fight with insurance companies about disability benefits because in their eyes, a psychological disturbance and this level of trauma doesn't really qualify. So I just want you to know that maybe we shouldn't forget the victims in this.
Amen.
We have
Amen.
2 sides. My life was really blown up. My retirement plans, everything. I'll be 64 years old and I'm starting a new job in August. but I've chosen to do it at a middle school where I'm working with young people who are at risk because I want to be a part of the solution. So I think that in closing, that's all I can share, but I want you to know that I don't envy your position, and I don't envy the position of law enforcement. If they're out trying to solve crime, it gets to your courtroom, if it gets to your courtroom, and then they're let go. It doesn't matter. They laugh about it in the back of the squad car. It's other people who have their lives torn apart. And my situation is nothing compared to someone who's lost someone to gun violence. But this is my story.
Knowing that one of the judges was involved in the case, I'm just going to make a comment here so that they don't. I know I'm not involved in the case. The perception that the victims are left behind, from my view, right? We talk about the victims a lot. And so the issue for us, or what you don't see, is that we don't hear from you until the end of the case, right? So once there's a sentencing and there's a victim impact statement, that's when we hear from you. I cannot impress upon all of you how important those victim impact statements, whether you're giving them orally in court or you're writing them, they are important. When they're asking for community input, the prosecutor or the victim advocate, because it's a business or it's something's happened to several people, those statements are important. It's important to us. It's important to the process. I'm sorry that you feel like you're left behind in this process, but I'm happy that in the county attorney's office, they have very good advocates. They will be with you every step of the way. And so hopefully they, in most cases, are telling you what's going on, because in our position, you don't get to talk to us until the end.
Again, we're not supposed to talk about individual cases. It wasn't my case. I don't know anything about it, but I accept, obviously, the trauma that this person went through here. Thank you for sharing. What I do want to say, though, I want to emphasize again what Judge Barnett said, that in my experience, when victims give victim impact statements, not only does it have an impression on the judge, but it also has an impression, usually, or can have an impression on the person who committed the offense. Because very frequently, especially, they're not thinking, especially young people, aren't thinking ahead. They're just thinking like, oh, this will be fun. But for instance, I've had car theft cases or whatever, where when the victim comes in and says, but without the car, I wasn't able to go to work. Like, I wasn't personally hurt. I wasn't around. But the car, that's what I needed to when you go to work. And we didn't have good transportation. I couldn't get there. My job isn't in the same place all the time, say. I have to go to different places for my job. But sometimes the person listening to that, hopefully that'll help them think, so that the next time they'll think and won't do the same behavior. So I would encourage you to make that victim impact statement, whether it's in person or in writing, because I think it is very important. And as judges, we have to follow the law, and so that's why we don't get victim input until the time of the sentencing, because that's when the law says we get it. However, we are aware that the prosecuting attorneys confer with the victims, and they can get input, and we ask for that and make sure.
Hello, my name is Melanie McCall. I would have really liked to have given a victim impact statement. I would really have wanted to see my perpetrators face to face, and even to talk with them. I didn't have that chance. On a sunny Saturday afternoon in December 2021, I pulled one of our cars into our garage next to the car that was already there. I looked up from my phone. I was still sitting in the car. I looked up from my phone and saw two young men, one of them pointing a gun at my head. Over the course of a few minutes, they repeatedly threatened my life. Do this, or I'll kill you. Give me that, or I'll kill you. Do it now, I'm going to kill you. They took both of our cars. They got the keys off of the key ring, took the car I was in, took the other car that was in the garage, took my cell phone, took my purse. As they were leaving, the gunman, the one who'd been saying he was going to kill me, said, "Don't do anything stupid. Don't tell anybody. Don't do anything. Now I know who you are. I know where you live. I will come back and hurt you and hurt your family." It took a few days to get one car back. It took another couple of weeks for the other car to be found. We eventually got our cars back. While the police had the cars, they were able to get fingerprints. Multiple fingerprints. 2 sets of fingerprints were from people who were known to them. We knew from those fingerprints that those two men were adults when they carjacked me and committed this crime. But they had those fingerprints because these two young men had been in the system repeatedly, over and over, as juveniles. These two men, the warrants were issued for their arrest. If we had gotten one of them, they knew who he was. We think they knew where to get him, but they didn't go get him. If they had gotten him, maybe he would have said where the second guy was. But he's never been arrested. He's one of the supposedly 20,000 outstanding arrest warrants that are just out there. That perpetrator is still out there. The second perpetrator was found. Approximately 4 months after the carjacking, I got a call from my investigator. Hassan Ali was found slumped over in his car, dead of a fentanyl overdose, with his gun next to him in the seat. I grieve for the loss of that life. I grieve for what my family has had to endure. I grieve for what other families have had to endure. I grieve for what Hassan Ali's family has had to endure. The fact that he is dead, and the fact that the other perpetrator is still out there, and that they reached adulthood to commit this crime, is a failure of all of us. Everyone in this community. And I implore you, as part of the system, to please keep working on the initiatives that are here. It has to change. We cannot live in a city, in a society that is allowing these babies to commit small crimes and without any help, without any treatment for them, for their families, and for the victims. They will go on, they will commit other crimes, and sooner or later, they're going to end up dead. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. Appreciate you being able to tell that story. And next up, we have Marsha Cotter from the Campus Safety Coalition, unless there are any other comments from the judges.
Good evening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you. I do not particularly have a victim impact statement, although I will say this to you. I have a niece who was attacked in Dallas City, Riverside, was attacked by a group of juveniles, beaten unconscious with a purse, and had a fourth-degree concussion. And of course, tons of trauma. She's 21 years old, is waiting for the bus to take her to school. I know what that's like. I've been through it secondhand. I have a son who attends the University of Minnesota. I'll talk a little bit more about that and how terrifying it is to be a parent these days who has a child who attends that school. I attended the University of Minnesota, did my undergrad work there, did my graduate work there, love that school, absolutely love that school. Terrified and sick about what's going on at the university, not only what's going on in other places around the cities and the suburbs. Let me just read, if I could, please, so I stay on track. If that's okay. I don't want to sound to be too dronish. I represent, my name is Marsha Cotter, I represent the Campus Safety Coalition. We are a group of parents and other members, community members, who are attempting to create a safe environment for students and faculty and community at the University of Minnesota. We've seen a great influx of crime, juvenile crime, on campus and off campus. It's been going on actually for several years. Since our inception 1 year ago, this increase has vacillated depending on where the crimes are committed. The U of M will tell you that crimes have gone down on campus, which is true, and I would hope that has something to do with our efforts. 40% as opposed to 2019 and 2020. Those are on-campus crimes, however, those are not off-campus. Off-campus means Dinkytown. Off-campus means Stadium Village. Off-campus means Marcy Homes. The precincts in the areas where most of the student housing is, where a lot of the crime was committed. Crime stats, including assaults, carjackings, and thefts, have been reported increase since 2019 and 2020, culminating in the 1721 property incident, which many of you may have heard of, where a house was overtaken by a bunch of squatters, drug addicts. It was actually a co-op that was managed poorly, from what I understand, and it was taken over by people who really had no business even being in student housing, certainly not near fraternity and sorority row at the U of M. At this time, there was an incident where there were gunshots, assaults, and robberies, and it was commonplace until the city and MPD and UMPD came in and shut that property down for good. I'm happy to report that, again, crime is down at the University of Minnesota on campus, but that is not true for other areas where student housing exists. Today, more specifically, the last couple of months, we have been dealing with mobs of juveniles from all over the cities and suburbs who come on campus, specifically Dinkytown, causing mayhem, assaulting students, others. Car thefts are up, as well as the latest trend, which is throwing fireworks and projectiles into cars, students walking by, students sitting outside, community members, businesses. There has really been no end to it. This is the first weekend I think we have gone without any remarkable incidents that happened at the U, which we're very happy about. But of course, what happened are these mobs moved, as you know, into the Calhoun, I'm old school, so I call it Calhoun, and Blue Island area, where this sort of mob mentality continued to happen outside of where Dinkytown is. So my questions, before I run out of time, to the panel judges is, could you help me to understand, and people, I think, in this sanctuary to understand, how it is that juvenile facilities were ever authorized to be permanently closed, and why we are struggling to try to find other resources for these kids. Why can't we reopen and reimagine services for juveniles? Is it true that we are holding kids, if it's true that we're holding kids responsible and have nowhere to put them, have we literally failed them as a community? If you could just answer that in the last minute or two, if I have time, it would be great.
I guess I can talk just as maybe to the county homeschool, but the Hennepin County Homeschool had been around in Minnetonka since the late 1800s. and it's an open campus, but it had, you know, like gates and separate cottages with people where they would get, the young people would get counseling. There would be psychiatrists, counselors, those kind of things. There was a separate program for girls. There was a separate program for juvenile who had committed sex offenses, and the rest were like boys that committed other things. At some point, there had been, I would say back in the 90s, it used to be full, and it held like 130 some people, young people, and then there was a trend towards doing more community-based options to try to serve young people, and so there were less young people being sent to the county homeschool. The county commissioners and the head of the Department of Community Corrections in Hennepin County just decided that it was a budget item and that it was losing money. It didn't make sense after a while because it was built to hold over 100 and some young people, and they were staffing it like that, and towards the end there was only like 25 or 35 or 45 kids there. They said they had some community input, but there was no big discussion, and so I looked. I didn't see any meetings. They didn't inform. They didn't ask the judges. They told us, and so they just decided to cut out the line item. So I would say all of you should go talk to your county commissioners.
Absolutely.
I don't know any specifics about any of these treatment facilities. I'm not privy to that kind of information. But anecdotally, I understand at least one, there was maybe staff misconduct that ultimately led to the place closing. Other places, the amount of government and the record keeping and all those things and the accreditations, et cetera, became overwhelming. We could not keep up with that. A lot of them is staff shortages also. As everybody else knows, when you go to any business, they're short of staff. The same applies to these places. So I don't think it's any one thing. I think it's a whole bunch of things that have contributed to this crisis.
I also want to say that, there was a trend for many, many years when the crime rates were low to try to treat juveniles in the community because that was proven by research to be a more effective way to address their needs. And frankly, the science hasn't stopped saying that. The issue is that no one could have predicted the consequences of the pandemic, especially as they related to juvenile crime. The fact that teenage kids didn't have schooling, that they could rely on or places that they could go to as outlets for them, it created obviously a lot of the crime spikes that we've seen in our community, and that has caused very serious problems, especially as it relates for mental health. So I think, while we need more facilities that offer treatment, especially in response to the things that happened in the pandemic, we do need to consider the fact that treatment in the community, support of the community, that is still the gold standard with respect to helping juveniles. We do want to respond to violent crime. We are listening to everything you are saying. Frankly, we read every petition that comes through when we're assigned to these calendars, and so we know what happens to the victims, and we take that very, very seriously. But we also do need to remember that it's really important for the community to support both the victims, the young people. We all need to come together to address some of the problems that we're talking about here tonight.
Can I ask another question, Dr. Goff? Okay, right. My second question was, and I applaud and I respect everything that you're saying. One of the things that we're trying to do is be proactive. We want to be part of the solution. We know primarily who a lot of these gangs of juveniles are. We know who they are. The community knows who they are, and there are people who are stepping forward now so we can all try to work together to figure out what can we do with these kids. I don't want these kids to get hurt. A kid blew a hole in his stomach last week, blowing out projectiles and and fireworks. One of them lost 3 of his fingers. I mean, what is it going to take? The last time it happened at the U, there were a couple of students who had huge gashes in their legs from projectiles and fireworks being thrown at them. So we recognize that it takes a village. I know that's an old adage, but it really does take a village. So I applaud that we're on the same page with that. I think that's very important to us. My last question I wanted to ask was, what we see a lot in Digitown, and from what I'm hearing from other people as well, is that we have these repeat criminals who come in. These kids come in. They've been there 2, 3, 4 times. They get arrested. They're let out of jail for a small fee, and they're back in Digitown the next day or next weekend doing the same thing. What is the answer to that? Is that something that as a community we can talk to our officials to try to change the laws? I'm not quite sure what we can do to help getting these repeat offenders, even if they are juveniles, sort of out of the community and into some kind of a rehab facility so that they are safe as well as the community.
I'm just going to respond to one small part of that maybe, because there was something that the legislature did the last time. There's one of the gaps in our system is, well, as I said, as judges, we have to follow the law. So we apply the law as people come in. One of the things that happens sometimes is that young people are found not competent. If they're incompetent to proceed, that means that they're not able to understand the proceedings, they're not able to assist in their defense. So if they're found incompetent to proceed, depending upon the law says, depending upon the nature of the offense, if it's a felony offense, the prosecution has to be suspended. There's nothing else that can be done. And they have to be suspended, and we can reevaluate in 6 months and then another 6 months to see if they've become competent. So that can be kind of a gap in services. But one of the things that's happened recently, and I kind of want to turn it over to Judge Kappelhoff, is that the Department of Human Services is looking at, or has started, saying if a young person is found incompetent, let's not wait, let's get services in right away. If they're found incompetent, we can't prosecute them, so we're not going to lock them up, we're not going to put them in a facility, we can't prosecute them, they haven't been found guilty. But they still need services so that hopefully the offense that led them to come into court in the first place won't happen again. And so there are some things that are happening, and I kind of want to turn it over to Judge Kappelhoff, because he's our presiding judge in juvenile, but where they're getting services in play right away, even though they haven't been found guilty of anything, but to help them gain competence. And so that's a new thing that just happened in the last month, that I don't think you mentioned.
I have definitely not mentioned it, but I will not. Ms. Cotter, thank you for the work that you do with the U of M, and thanks for sharing. 2 things I'll mention. One is what to do, and I mentioned at the outset with youth who are reoffend. It's intervening early and quickly. And that is exactly what I talked about at the outset, is we now intervene earlier with youth to identify the youth who need services to change the trajectory of their life. We don't want it to continue and recidivate. We want to intervene earlier, get services involved earlier in that youth's life as well as the family, and look at what's going on in that young person's life so we can intervene and change the track, hopefully change the track of that young person. So that's one of the things that we actually are doing, and we implemented that to bring in the department, the probation department involved. We have behavioral mental health involved as well to find out really what's going on with that youth. So what Judge Bransford is referring to is we have a mental health crisis not only in our society here but across the country, and it's exacerbated with our youth. Minnesota just conducted a survey of 8th, 9th, and 11th graders, and what that showed, self-reported, that 44% of the children in our high school, 8th, 9th, and 11th graders, reported some form of emotional distress in the last year. That's 44%. Now that's the population in writ large. Oftentimes the youth that we see, that number is much higher. So we have youth suffering from significant mental health challenges, which Judge Bransford referred to. When a youth is found not competent under the law, the proceedings are suspended. And then the youth is there to fend for him or herself with the family to try to find services. Well, any of you have been involved in the medical field, mental health field, that's a huge challenge. So what the Department of Behavioral Health has implemented is implemented a new Navigator program. It's been in place for about a month now. What the Navigator program does is a social worker specifically assigned to work with those families in which the youth is either found not competent or is experiencing mental health challenges to help that youth and his or her family navigate the mental health system, to plug them in where they can get services. Now, that's the open question, right? Where are they going to get services? We're hugely lacking in that area. Provide mental health services and a continuum of care. Just like Judge Williams mentioned, some may be community-based, some may be other services. And that's where the system is lacking. But we now have a system in place to help those families and that young person to get the help that they may need.
That's great news. All right. Thank you, each and every one of you, for the job that you do. I really respect it and appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. I think one of the questions that does keep coming up, and thank you for addressing the juvenile incompetence issue, because that is a huge issue that I know you're working on right now. It got resolved with adults, but it's still not resolved with juveniles yet, and hopefully there is a group working on that. But I think the question that didn't really get answered, that Marcia was asking and a lot of other people have had, is with regard to the repeat offenders. I mean, it came up over and over again, and I know you all don't have a crystal ball to know, what's going to happen after they leave your courtroom. But I think a lot of people feel that there's a lot of negative reinforcement happening with the kids, and that they are not, getting consequences. And consequences doesn't have to mean punishment, but it has to mean that they are feeling that what they did was wrong, and that they are going to be heard, And so I think that's where I think the community is saying, when someone is arrested 3 nights in a row, and we're seeing that they are having no consequences, I think that's where we're wondering, is it because there aren't programs for them? What is kind of going through your head when you're seeing, that type of situation? We also know that they're not getting arrested for lower level crimes as much as they used to. They're not getting that earlier touch point, so when you're seeing them, it is already, ratcheted up. But I don't know, can someone respond to that kind of like situation?
Yeah, I'll start. One point is that what we would see as juvenile consequences are different for a juvenile than for an adult. We don't send juveniles to prison. We work on rehabilitation because we want them to be successful adults. So there is a lot going on that people don't see. They are placed on probation, and the youth probation workers are a phenomenal group of people. I mean, the way they can connect with youth is amazing to me. And they have lots of programs throughout the city, throughout the county that they do. So a lot of times these kids are ordered to go to an 8-week anger management program. Now, I've raised 3 kids. Trying to get any kid to go to an 8-week anger management program that you named, that's a hard sell, but they do it. I mean, the probation officers will sometimes pick them up at home or pick them up at the job and take them back, etc. I mean, the level of services dedicated to these kids is surprisingly high. I think, as a citizen, not as a judge, I think it's pretty high in terms of the programs that are available and that are required to go to. So a probation officer will do a predisposition report for us and suggest these different requirements and services, and we will order youth to do those various things. So depending on their specific needs, those would address their specific needs. So not a traditional consequence in terms of jail or something, but consequences of things kids don't necessarily want to do, but are in fact in the end pretty helpful for them.
And what if we don't agree with that?
I just wanted to point out also that during the pandemic.
It's not a pandemic.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
It's a failure of doing your job.
Excuse me. What I was saying is that.
Tolerating crime.
Excuse me.
Misbehavior.
Oh. Okay, I was saying that the way that we did court changed during the pandemic because it became more remote using Zoom technology. And that I said as judges have followed the law, and one of the things that we did was start having more remote hearings using Zoom technology. And of course, for those of you who are working, sometimes Zoom technology is very convenient because you don't have to take a whole day off work, you don't have to go downtown, etc. What I have found is that sometimes when young people are appearing from their homes on Zoom technology, they may not think it's as important or as serious as the coming into the courthouse and seeing the gravity. You know, it's done there for a reason. Just like we're in the church and, you know, you have the minister up front. When we're in a courthouse, you have the courtroom set up so that the judge is up high or higher, and you want to explain things to them and they see that it's serious. So I would say that on what we do is on the more serious cases, we do bring them down to the courthouse because we want the young people to realize, and we can do it on our own, sometimes the judges, to say, we want them to realize this is really serious and this is really important. And what I'm just saying is that I'm not blaming everything on the pandemic, I'm just saying it changed the way we do business, so that now that we have some court, a lot of court really, by Zoom, that sometimes the young people won't take it as serious because they're doing court from their bedroom or wherever they are in their house. That's all I'm saying.
I just had one last comment about, Ms. Wicklund, your question was specifically about repeat offenders. And you're right, none of us have a crystal ball, and we absolutely can't predict who's going to become a repeat offender and who isn't. What we know from research is that about 75% of juveniles that commit some type of crime are never going to reoffend ever again. And so when we involve them in depth in the court system, we're actually doing more harm to them, that 75%, than we would if we just gave them a minor consequence and let them go. When we see kids that are in that other 25%, the ones that we're all talking about tonight, that's when we need to do what Judge Kavanaugh said, which is specifically get to early intervention as quickly and as fast as we can. Sometimes it's hard for us as judges to know exactly what the right service is to intervene with right away, because the issue is the child's concerns or the things that we might need to treat are not apparent right away. So sometimes we try something that we think is the least restrictive intervention, which is required by law, and it doesn't work, and they reoffend. Or sometimes we can't get to them fast enough, and it doesn't work, and they reoffend. None of us up here want kids to reoffend. We're trying to work as quickly as we possibly can and process cases as quickly as we possibly can, so that we're getting to those kids that look like they're going to be a very serious risk to the community before they do anything that's even more serious than what they're in front of us for. So I can assure you that it seems like we're letting kids go and we're just sending them back out into the community, but every time we see a child, we are trying to figure out what their needs are as quickly as possible and address them so they don't offend in the community anymore.
Thank you. I know that we're kind of a little bit over time, so I really appreciate it, and I think that, we will definitely wrap up. One of the speakers wasn't able to be here tonight, and so I think the one thing I just want to end with is kind of a question, and maybe you can respond to it, maybe you can't. And it's really what I've learned in my journey is that things are not always what we think they are. The people who have power may not be the ones who can make the decisions. And Judge Bransford, you keep talking about we have to work within the law, right? And so, but we've also heard that judges have a lot of discretion, right? And so we have, county attorney's office, and we have the defense team coming to you with a proposal sometimes, with a plea that has occurred. And, you know, we read about things in the paper, of course, that are sensationalized, but we've also had things that have happened to us. We've been victims, right? And so we're looking at it through all those lenses, and we're wondering, you know, when that comes, you know, are you able to say, I don't agree with, you know, what you're recommending to be, you know, the consequence? When the county attorney and the defense attorney have agreed upon it. And I think that's something that would be helpful for us to understand how much latitude you do have in those situations, because it's my understanding that you do, but it's not often challenged.
You know, part of it depends on the case, but do we have discretion to accept a plea negotiation or not? Yes, we do have discretion. I think and the judges who work in juvenile court can talk about that. But what I would say is, it's still back to the same issue, right? You don't accept the deal, which is fine. What's the alternative? You're still stuck in the same place with services in juvenile court. And that's what you're hearing from all of these judges here, is we're limited to what it is available. Sir, you can wave your hand like that, but that's the reality. The reality is we work in a system that has a lot of cases, and it's not one justice partner that's not overworked. Not one. The police, the prosecutors, the defense team, probation, the psych services folks, all of them are. So if I had a crystal ball, we'd have enough money so we could react swiftly. But the issue is we're having to react to crisis every single day. That's just a reality of our system, and that will continue to be the reality. That's where we are. It's a crisis every day.
Here's my problem here. We're talking about kids of color. I'm an African American man, and I am not given the opportunity to address this audience. And so when we look at why some things aren't working, maybe it's because there's this disconnect where we're making all these decisions, we're doing all this planning, but the people we need to talk to, we're not talking to. I want to take my 3 minutes because I signed up for it. My name is Marvin Smith. I was a victim of a crime over 50 years ago. I was shot in the leg with a .30-06, hit the femur bone. I've been crippled ever since. But I don't want to talk about that. What I want to talk about is the fact that when I grew up in the 50s in North Minneapolis, we had no less than 5 community centers: Hospitality House, The Way, the Settlement House, Jerry Gamble's house, the YMCA, and in the Phyllis Wheatley, the most important one. Every day we had an opportunity to go there and be surrounded by loving, caring African-American adults that were our parents. They parented us, they guided us, they taught us, they nurtured us, they loved us. And they gave us a strong foundation to grow up to be good citizens. Now, we strayed, as I did, but most of our found our way back. And so the reason why that's so important is because that was our village. And so now I want to make this next connection. Jim Bransford, her father, came and picked me up 45 years ago and took me to treatment. Picked me up, took me to treatment, and waited outside the door for 2 years while I was in treatment to make sure that I didn't elope and go and get high. That was the village. And so when you talk about doing all these things, if you don't take these kids of color and put them in a company of men like me, You missed the ball. Granted, we got people doing some wonderful things, but I'm going to tell you, there's nobody that's going to move, touch, encourage, guide, teach these young men, especially these African-American men, to become responsible, productive adults if they don't sit in the company of someone like me. Jim Transfer, her father, was instrumental in helping me become the man that I am. I got 45 years of uninterrupted sobriety. Every other Wednesday, I sit in ex-judges Stevenson's court in Ramsey County, where there's 30 to 40 primarily African-American men who come in there, they're felons. That's who we're talking about. And the casualness in which they carry guns and talk about that lifestyle should alarm all of us. The good thing is that there are men like me that are working to teach them to disengage from that particular lifestyle and engage in this new lifestyle. What I didn't hear here, and what you need to hear is that if you don't figure out how to change culture, you missed the boat. And an example I give you is this. I'm also president of the National Association of Minority Contractors, right? I got 30 to 40 minority contractors in that association. Every day I wake up, I have to go fight the unions, I have to go fight the big construction companies and beg them to give us our due share of the jobs that are allocated by the federal government when it comes to goals for minority contractors, right? I have to do that fight every day. The reason I raise that issue is simply this. I hire African American men and women who need a second chance, as do all of the other contractors in this association. So if we're not getting work that belongs to us, we don't hire these kids. So that kid wakes up every day, and instead of putting on a hard hat and steel-toed boots and coming to work with me for 20 to 60 bucks an hour, he's strapping on a Glock, an AR-15, and he's going out to steal your car or to rob you. And so, lastly, I just want to say this. I have ideals, and I have things that I know work. I just mentioned some of them. I need your help in figuring out how it is, and it's only going to be a small tick in changing the landscape here, but if we can change one or two kids, the magic of that is that one or two kid goes changes another one or two kids. And those one or two kids go change another one or two kids. Because again, we're talking about culture. And so, again, my name is Marvin Smith. I'm the president of the National Association of Minority Contractors. If this society did what it's supposed to do, if these companies did what they're supposed to do, we would be in a different world. This last thing I'm going to say is this. There was a disparity study, 2018, I believe. Hennepin County, City of Minneapolis, Ramsey County, Med Council, Parks and Recreation, Airports Commission, $5 billion spend. Minority contractors got half of 1% of a $5 billion spend. What would happen if it was fair, if those opportunities were meted out fair? Those kids that are waking up to do you harm will be working on my crew for $20 to $60 an hour. The work that we do, when I get done with them, the worst thing they're going to do is they're going to go home and smoke a joint and lay their butts down and get ready for work the next day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marvin.
I want to say one more thing, okay? Thank you guys for being here. I
I don't think that they were being held accountable as much as they should have been as for the crimes that they committed. And with that said, what the president that said was that, hey, I'm going to be in the juvenile correction place. It's so sweet, so easy that, oh, adult jail is going to be the same, right? And most of these kids are black, African American, Somali, and other minority kids, okay? And so I don't like the way the things that are being run, how the system is making it feel like it's easy, and the gangs now are using these young people to recruit them to do the crimes because they feel like they get less time and less consequences. So I really do not appreciate that, and that's all I want to say is, please find a better way to work with the people that are working in the juvenile correction facilities to find out how they can help the youth do better in those facilities. I know that trauma-informed care is a thing that Hennepin County is trying to practice, but trauma-informed care without any consequences is not going to help anybody. Okay, it's not going to help the youth, and it's not going to help the community. Thank you so much.
I know that we are really over time, so I really feel like we actually. I'll have to, not on the list. I asked people to contact me if they were interested in speaking, and the judges gave us 1 hour of time, and we are now at almost 1.5 hours. And so I will ask the judges, if they have any more time, but otherwise I let them do the concluding remarks.
Those judges, just like other listening sessions that we had, those judges that can...
Which one want to come up and speak? Which one of the black people want to come up and speak? Come on. Forget this.
Yeah, so my name is Adia Hickman. I'm from North Minneapolis. Some of y'all may recommend, or you might say that I'm at risk. I would beg to differ. I would like to say that I am bound for greatness. That is what you are not seeing about my people, my youth, my co-workers, my colleagues, my schoolmates. You guys are saying the theys, the we's, and then saying that it takes a village. You're not my village. My village is the YMCA, the hospitality house. It's my coworkers that snatched the mic for me, that I can talk up here, because some ignorance. Oh, don't be a part of my village. Look, I don't need you to be a part of my village because you are the problem for people that are. You are the people that are shutting me and my so go ahead and keep on walking,
Don't be disrespectful. Don't be disrespectful in the church.
So I'm gonna keep on going, and I'm gonna say that your backhanded, it takes a village does not matter to me. Your we lost cars does not hold value in my heart because I take value to the impact statement, not the capitalism and not the materialistic values. That means nothing to me. The lives mean something to me. The fact that you were threatened means something to me. The fact that your perpetrator, that does not hold value to me. The fact that that person lost their life, the fact that that person was put in that position to even be there. Why was that person there? That holds value to me. So I challenge all of y'all to think about that before you're trying to shut somebody up like me, because one thing about me, I'm going to talk, and you're going to hear.
kids are being assaulted, raped in that facility, right? That's what it was shut down for. So now you wanna leave. The fact that y'all are so privileged that you can have this meeting when black folks in our actual neighborhoods are being harmed and we can never meet with these people. Give me a freaking break. Like that, those things are not even
Okay,
publicized that way.
so I just want to wrap things up here and thank the people who came to have a respectful conversation, and thank the judges who were here. And thank everybody for being here.
Grab a microphone from the judges. That's fine for her.
I don't mind if she wants to talk, but
But that she doesn't follow the rules.
always how it is. You should go to the meetings with you. You're worse.
You know that, just in case you know that the university, when we were going there, was just my daughter went to medical school there several years ago. It was safe. She wandered around from her fraternity house to Sally's to, and now.
Things we don't even hear about because we just want you to know.
Well, this is not one.